Kingdom Conversations, episode 2. Dose of them. Remember when we were talking about getting it started? Now we got
Yeah.
one in the background, one in the rearview mirror, and working on one now.
Oh, we made it
We
through the
made it.
first one.
We made it. It's been a week.
It's been a week,
Been a
a
week.
whole week.
Somebody told me though, when you're about to get married, that's just how it works. You know.
A lot of stuff has happened. A lot of conversations with the Lord has happened, I will say.
hmm But the enemy is not a person that or entity that divide himself against himself. So he always has his plans, but we're smarter than that and everything. But thank you for the lessons I've learned from you this week, which kind of brings us into how this whole week started. Yeah. So,
So what are we talking about? What's today?
Today's Esther,
The book of Esther.
one of your favorite women in the Bible. First thing I knew about you when I met you was you were into women in the Bible and learning their stories. And I like Esther for a whole different reason. I come from a time where everybody thought that I was one of the most well-behaved children in the family. And the real thing was I was afraid of my grandmom and my grandfather. So when my mother and the father dropped me off, I just chilled out until they came back to get me. Whatever grandma was watching on TV, that's what we watched on TV. No complaints. I don't want any food. I don't want any water. I ain't trying to make nobody angry. I'm just going to sit here until mom and daddy come back to get me. They were like, your boy behaves well about it. So I said all that to say, grandmama likes soap operas.
Yes. And my grandmother loved soap operas. God rest her soul. She loved them. And oddly enough, my brother used to watch them with her. I didn't like them per se. But, well, I take that back because I used to watch General Hospital.
I had to do the whole thing. I think it was, I don't remember the order, but all my children came on right before General Hospital and then sit through all that. So I remember when Jess and Angie was the first black couple. So I did all that. But I said all that because Esther to me is one of those books that people always pointed out when I said the Bible is boring. I don't want to read this.
The Bible is full of drama. It's full of drama. And Esther is one of them that's full of drama.
Esther it's better than every soap opera I've ever seen. It's better than all those Tyler Perry movies. It's better than an action novel. It's better than drama. It's better than fiction. Yes. It's better than all that stuff. It is based off of a true story. Actually, it is a true story.
You got a villain. You got a hero.
You got twists and turns. Treachery. Jealousy.
Oh man.
Everything good soap opera needs. But I said all that because before I say anything else, I made a mistake last week and I want to correct that because it's been on my mind. I think I said something. I was talking about when the enemy attacks younger children because it's trying to get them out of their element early. I think I prefaced that by saying God attacks these children, and that's not what I meant to say. I was talking faster than my brain was working and stuff like that. So let me correct that out. The enemy attacks your youth because he wants to get them out of the realm of what God designed for them and do so before they're old enough to actually become what God intended. So God did not stop them from doing that. God is actually moving them along in the plan.
Right, absolutely.
So obedience. This conversation first came about because after we did the Resurrection Sunday episode, we were like, okay, what are we going to talk about next? And then next thing I know, I'm talking to you and I'm telling you the story about Mordecai, but I meant Haman.
Yes.
and you were kind of looking at me like, Mordecai didn't do all that.
Right. And I kept looking like, wait, you mean Haman? Yeah. Just thinking of the story because oddly enough, you were talking about it, but then the Lord woke me up one morning and it took me to the book of Esther. So I had been studying it, for like a night or two. And then you started talking about Mordecai and realized it was supposed to be Haman. But needless to say, we both was in the same book.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like, okay, that must be what we're supposed to talk about then. Yes. We didn't have this conversation before that conversation.
No.
And then you did a live stream.
I did.
You did well. You did better than well. You did amazing.
Thank you.
How'd that come about?
It was, shortly after, it was Easter. After we did, our church service, we came home, I cooked, and kind of sitting down, and I kind of heard the Lord say, go live. And I'm like, first of all, I don't go live. Like, what do you mean go live? And go live and say what? So I tabled it. I didn't go live then, but he was on me all week. And then when he kept bringing me to the book of Esther and having me study Esther, it Friday morning it just hit. Like he's like, you're not doing anything else. You're not starting work until you do this live. So I ended up being obedient, to what he wanted me to share. And I'm like, okay, Lord, what are we talking about? And I hit the live button, he just started flowing. So yeah, I did it.
Good for
I
you.
did it. It's totally outside of my comfort zone, outside of, what I ideally would have done. But
Good for you. And it turned out amazing. It blessed a lot of people. And even if it would have blessed one person, that's the point. So
yes. And he's been having me to do a lot of that, sharing a lot of my testimony, just via social media, just as an act of encouragement to people. And then, show him as being, the one that redeems, saves, restores. So those posts have been very uncomfortable, but the live was absolutely uncomfortable. But I did it.
But amazing.
I did it.
Uncomfortable.
That was all because of him, because the Lord knows I did not want to.
All right. So we both have had conversations all week. We talked about Esther for reasons I brought up and for reasons you brought up. You want to talk about takeaways first and tell the story for those who may not know the story? You want to talk about the story first and talk about takeaways? How you want to do it?
Well, I say, because not everybody knows the story of Esther and how she came about. So let's share with the people about Esther, the story of it, and then we can discuss our takeaways.
True facts. Like, comment, subscribe, talk to us while we're here and everything. Because just let us know you guys are out there. We love y'all.
Conversation. It takes 3, 4, 5 of us.
All right. So I guess in 30 minutes time, especially after we've already been talking for 8, we don't actually have time to go through the entire book. But I guess let's pick it up. You have King Ahasuerus, and I'm going to start with, every time I've heard this name pronounced by somebody, I know they're called Vashti. I've also heard Vashti. The queen in the Bible who was previously married to Ahasuerus. So he's got this feast. It's real elaborate. It's real celebratory and everything. He's a bit of a show off. Also referred to as Xerxes. Not to be confused with Xerxes in 300 for those of y'all who saw that movie.
Yes.
But also referred to as Xerxes. And Xerxes is having a feast and wants the queen basically to parade around in a way that she, from what I've read in different interpretations, would equate to alleviate some of her virtue and everything. Yes. She didn't want to behave as she was taught to behave, which is actually honorable.
Yes, but in those times, it was seen as disrespectful.
It was seen as disrespectful.
So
could probably get you killed. I think that was treason back in the day. To just not doing it. Anything you said about the king, didn't do what the king said, stuff like that is treason. So Vashti is sat down, and the king then has basically the equivalent of a pageant, 400 women or so, and he's going to choose from some of those women. The one that rises to the top and ends up becoming the new queen is Esther.
And the flip side of Esther is she's a Jew.
She's a Jew.
Yes.
She's a Jew. That's important later for y'all that don't know the story. Okay, so I got real cute with this, and you're going to be so proud of me when you see what actually happened here. Let me show you what I did. I actually went so far as to bring up one of the parts that I thought I just needed people to see the words here. And we're going to go to 3. Haman's plot against the Jews.
Yes.
After these things, King Ahasuerus, Xerxes, promoted Haman, the son of somebody with a difficult name, the adjutant, and advanced him and established his authority over all the officials who were with him. All the king's servants who were at the king's gate in royal service bowed down and honored and paid homage to Haman, for this is what the king had commanded in regard to him. But Mordecai, a Jew of the tribe of Benjamin, neither bowed down nor paid homage to him.
And what chapter and verse is that?
That was Esther 3, verse 1 and 2.
Got it. So our people would know where to look.
Exactly.
Reference.
I apologize. And that was also Amplified Bible.
Amplified.
Keep me straight.
Yes.
Keep me straight. So, okay. As you see, Mordecai is a Jew. This is a problem. And I've also seen where Mordecai, we get into the twists and turns, the soap opera stuff.
Yeah.
Mordecai obviously didn't want to bow to Haman because he saw this as an act of idolatry. Haman, Haman, from what I understand, didn't even notice this until some of his
Right.
appointees pointed this out to him, like, this dude has disrespected you. And all of a sudden it's a problem when you didn't even notice this problem before.
Right. Absolutely. So now we go into Haman.
We go into Haman. And then the palace officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why are you disobeying the king's demand?" They spoke to him day after day, but still he refused to comply with the orders. So they spoke to Haman about this to see if he would tolerate Mordecai's conduct, since Mordecai had told him he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down or show him respect, he was filled with rage. He had learned of Mordecai's nationality, so he decided it was not enough to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, he looked for a way to destroy all the Jews throughout the entire kingdom of Xerxes. And you know what? You know who this sounds like? Hitler.
So, okay. So let's recap.
Right.
So now we have Mordecai.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
He is taking care of Esther,
Mm-hmm.
who's a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
She found, well, she didn't have to do as much as the other was it 400, 500?
400, I think.
Women.
Yeah.
Because of her natural beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when she went, I don't even know if we got there yet before the king, she didn't even do all the beauty regimens that they told her that she should.
Just the ones that were recommended.
Yes. So now we have Haman that got upset with Mordecai because Mordecai didn't bow to him. So now we have jealousy, rage, anger.
And we're going to commit genocide of an entire race of people.
We're going to just wipe them all out because of this one person.
And remember remember this Jew part of the story, remember this jealousy and this anger and this bitterness part of the story and everything. Because like I said,
yeah.
The interesting thing about it was we have I keep thinking, I don't know if I should even say this, I keep thinking about Hitler. Same thing, was offended by a Jew, decided he wants to kill all of them.
Yes.
Which is another story for another time.
But yes.
But the offense thing was pretty bad, and it led to the next part of the story, which is in the first month, the month of Nisan, which eventually appears to it equates to March, April, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus. Haman cast pure, that is the lot cast before him day after day to find a lucky day to approach the king, month after month, until the 12th month, the month of Adar, February and March. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, "There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in all of the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of all other people, and they do not observe the king laws. Therefore, it is not the king's interest to tolerate them. Let them stay here." So now a plan's been hatched and everything.
Yep.
And it's interesting to me because, just back to this offense thing, as you continue to watch the story unfold, and I don't want to get too far ahead of what we're talking about here, but the offense thing can really destroy someone's life, and it ends up destroying his.
The offense,
spoiler alert,
real. Because not only did he decide to kill all the Jews, he sat on that, so he labored on it and to come to that decision. Yeah. Because of one person. That's heavy. Very. That's heavy.
Very.
So now it's going to risk all these other people's lives because of a total offense. So that is pride.
Very much so.
That is pride that got in the way, that overcame him to come to that decision.
Right.
So that's a lot.
All right. We hatched the plan. If it pleases the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who carry out the king's business to put into the king's treasuries. Then the king removed his signet ring from his hand, that is the special ring which was used to seal his letters, and gave it to Haman, the son of the person with the difficult name, the enemy of the Jews. Then king said to Haman, the silver is given to you, and the people also to do with them as you please. I am rolling backstory. I am not wearing my glasses, and it's hard to read this. I can read. It's just all right. So the plan's in motion. All of this,
and unbeknownst to the king, he agrees because he doesn't fully know the plot and why Haman brought this to him.
Enter our girl Esther.
So there's deception.
There's deception. There's deception. Little backstory on Mordecai. Mordecai actually watches the gates of the kingdom and stuff, and he actually befuddled a plan to assassinate the king. That is also important. That will come into the story later.
That will.
So, okay. So
we fast forward.
And Mordecai challenges Esther to do something about it. Esther was hesitant. She hadn't seen the king in a month. She won the contest and hadn't seen the king in a month.
Yes.
I wish we had time to talk about women that want to call themselves queens, and you don't want to have to go through what a queen has to go through. You may not see the king. You have to put up with some nasty stuff.
Right.
You see what happened to Vashti. I don't think Vashti did anything wrong. And these 399 women that lost this contest to become the queen, they're now in a harem and are no longer able to have children or husbands and stuff, which is, again, another story for another day. But I just found all that to be interesting. So I think we're in Esther 4 at this time, somewhere around 13, 14. Mordecai sent his reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all the Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this. And she was.
Yes, and that's for reference. That's Esther 4, 13 through 14. So, and that actually was the scripture that the Lord kept highlighting out to me in that last line or the last question statement, if you will, in Esther 4:14. Who knows that you were made queen for such a time as this? Who knows that you were made whatever for such a time as this? So that in itself stood out to me. She didn't know. The word had to get back to Esther, about what's about to happen with all the Jews. So Mordecai was leaning on her and her royal, position to be able to save the Jews.
Esther was challenged to take action, and she asks Mordecai, who has ripped his clothes because he's depressed. She has asked her people to fast for 3 days, and then after this fast, she's decided she's going to risk her life. And another part of this story that I think we tell this story all the time, there's one part of this story that I feel like gets left out of the explanation. The queen ain't just supposed to just walk up in the court just because you want to.
Right. Can we piggyback a little bit? The fact that she fasted.
Yeah.
So the importance of fasting and praying.
Good point.
Before you make a move.
Good point.
So, yes.
Yeah.
That in itself says a lot.
That's true. That's why you're here to keep me straight, because in my mind, I'm trying to get to the point.
She fasted and prayed. Yeah. And I will say, just for me, this since last year, the Lord has had me on this fasting lifestyle. So the importance of fasting and praying, so you can truly hear clearly, truly get guidance, truly get understanding of what it is you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and how. Because we can hear it and we still do it how we want to do it. But yes, to your point, she fasted for 3 days, and it became a corporate fast because she, sent word, and then her servants were doing the same. Wow.
Yeah. And at the end of this fast, she decides, I'm going to go in here and make a decree to my husband, the king, who, again, I have not seen in a month.
And that I'm not supposed to go see until he summons for me.
She could have lost her life by doing this, people. As soon as she walks in court, king could have been like, what are you doing? Kill her. But God is working behind the scenes. That's also a spoiler alert we're going to talk about later. But God is working behind the scenes. And the king, for whatever reason, shows favor on her and points his gold scepter towards her. She touches the scepter, and he asks her, what is your request? Rather than kill her. Because that's how that could have went.
Yes.
So the request, I like when you tell this part of the story.
She asked or made a request to have a banquet that invited Haman to it as well. So he granted her the request. She hosted a banquet. It's my personal favorite because I like to host. I like
Mhm.
to parties. So she did, and like all of us, sometimes I know for me, when she was supposed to tell the king what was the plot or what was going on, it was a little fear, probably a little chickened out.
Mhm. Which is why she
Asked for a second one.
which is why she asked for a second feast.
Yeah.
Now we're
She
not going to
did.
sit here and tell you guys that you've heard delayed obedience is disobedience, and we totally agree with that, and we totally get it. The point I want to make cautiously is that even though you mess it up the first time, don't just take for granted you're gonna get a second chance to do this.
Right.
Do it
Right.
right the first time.
Right.
But there is also grace from time
Yes.
to time because of that fact that she was working, maybe operating in a little bit of fear. Man, should I say this? Should I not? Same
Yeah.
thing we always do.
Right.
Okay, so let me just bring you to the feast to request another feast. But God even used that.
Yes. He even used that.
Yeah.
And showed favor. She had favor.
So the king is the master of a nation. He's the king, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
But what he cannot master is sleep.
Yes. So
here he is.
order.
Right. So while resting, the king decides, well, you know what? I'm the king, so I don't even have to read to myself. Let me have somebody grab the chronicles of my kingdom and my reign and have them
Right.
read it to me. So here we are, and he has somebody come in to do this. And it just so happened, for whatever reason, God had worked behind the scenes again. The chronicles are open right to the part where we told you about this earlier. Mordecai fails an assassination attempt on the king's
Yes.
life. By working at the king, so to backtrack a little bit for those of y'all that may have missed this part of the story, Mordecai works at the king's gates. He heard an assassination attempt was being planned. He reported this. It was investigated. It was coming to find out that his report was accurate, and the king's life was spared. And the king, this was written down in the chronicles. The king is now reading this later on.
Yeah.
And the king is like, okay, well, so what did we do for this person that saved the king's life? And the response was,
oh, so he's talking to Haman at this point, and he's like, okay, did we ever do anything to this guy that saved the king's life? But he never told him who.
yeah,
he
told the servant, and the servant, so he sees the king Haman
yes,
out in the court.
Yes. So calls Haman in and asks him, like, how can we show favor to a guy that the king finds favor in?
Can I just throw this part in really quick too? So while this is happening, before Haman shows up in court, Haman has gone home and everything. This offense is still bothering him. The fact that all these people have bowed to him is still bothering him, except this one dude. So forget all these other people who actually bowed. I just can't get my mind off the one dude that didn't. So he goes home, he talks to his wife, he talks to his friends, and he's like, I've been invited to a feast that features just the queen, the king, and me, and I still can't find satisfaction in this because I can't get my mind off the offense. I can't get my mind off the guy that offended me. You know what that sounded like to me, baby? I didn't get recognized for my part in the ministry. That didn't speak to me today at church.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I could shout out to Minister Kirkland. That right there, preach. Still his line. That'll preach. But yeah, so Mordecai is going home and he's expressed frustration. And then he is given the worst advice ever. Why don't you just go out and build a gallows so you can hang this brother later on?
A whole gallows.
Yeah. Backstory. So we're back in the court now. Mordecai is in the court right after building the gallows. After the construction is completed, he walks in and just happens to be walking by the king, who is now like, hey, brother man, so what should we do for somebody we want to honor? In his arrogance, he's thinking
it was him.
Yeah.
So we're always thinking it's about us, right?
Like, yeah.
So what would you do for me?
Right.
Like now we're talking about it. Let's talk about it.
Right.
And to come to find out, he wasn't talking about Haman.
I want to wear the king. You should let him wear the king's robes. Put him up on a horse.
Take him through the town.
Ride him around so everybody can see him. Wow.
But when he made up, those ideas, presented those ideas to the king,
Tell him what the king said.
the king finally was like, yes, you should do that. And do it to Mordecai because that's who he found favor. Do everything. Don't leave nothing out.
Don't leave nothing out.
Don't leave nothing out. Do all of the things that you suggested.
Mordecai and his arrogance thinks the king is wanting to reward him. He wants to reward Mordecai. Now you got to do this for a dude that you can't stand. And you know he can't handle that.
Right. So
beautiful wife at home, position, power, influence, a spot at the king's table. You got all this.
See what happens when you try to put yourself on a pedestal. It backfires. It always backfires.
I know that to be true.
And you put yourself, you try to parade yourself, you try to, oh yeah, I do this, I do that. It always backfires.
I know that to be true. I can tell you stories.
It is the Lord that wants the actual glory, not ourselves. Like we can't put ourselves on that pedestal. So he put himself on a pedestal and it backfired on him. And the same person that he would like hated to no avail, he had to parade him around.
And this is all before the second feast.
Right.
Which is cool because it's like, okay, Esther would have still rescued the Jews by stating this and everything, but all this doesn't happen to Mordecai. And, I think that was a nice portion of his story, things of that nature. Haman still gets what Haman got coming.
Yes.
But,
so that brings us to the second feast.
We're at the second feast now.
So the second feast, the king asks Esther again, basically what it is, why we're here, basically. And she finally tells him about the plot. So that took bravery. That took, humility, because you had to die to yourself, to save your people. And so when the cat's out the bag and Haman is sitting there, he's like, wait, whoa.
Can I read from the Jeff New Life translation?
Or Jeff, was it Jeff? Yes, international
the Jeff
version.
International version. This is not in the New King James Version. This is not in the Amplified Bible, as expansive as it is. It's not in the Message. Pretty sure it's not in the New Living Testament, the Message Bible, any of that stuff. So Esther is playing chess while Mordecai is playing checkers. And what Esther says, can I say it in the Jeff International Version? The king said, babe, what is it that you know? Why are we here? What do you need? She said, babe, you're not going to kill me, are you? What you mean am I going to kill you?
Right.
There's a decree that's been set out that's supposed to kill all the people, all of my people, because I never really told you. We told you about that, spoiler alert. I'm a Jew. Okay, well, where did this plan come from? Jeff International Version again. I can tell you this is not in the Amplified Bible.
Your homeboy.
That ninja over there, sitting right there, is the one that wants to kill me. And the king said, I need a break. Let me holler at y'all in a second. King leaves, probably to collect himself. Probably, I don't know what he's doing. I know he's mad. And Mordecai walks over to the queen to try to plead for his life because his fate is pretty much sealed at this point.
Yes. You can hang it up.
Yeah, it's pretty much done for him. And as he walks in, I don't know if he tripped, fell. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he lost his balance because he's just all out of sorts. But he ends up falling down
in the queen's
where
lap.
Esther is seated in the queen's lap. And the king,
just
Jeff
so
International Version, just happened to walk in and he said, no, he didn't.
No, he is not.
Will this man molest the queen in my presence? Hang him on those gallows. Remember we told you about the gallows?
His own gallows.
His own gallows. Because also something else. I meant to state this while we were saying this. On his way home after parading Mordecai around on the horse and everything, people are still bowing to him and stuff like that. And he still doesn't recognize this because he's still bothered by the offense of one man.
That's
heavy.
That is very heavy. It's so much to unpack in that, though. So, okay, let's break this down. What was your takeaway, your final takeaway from this? And we're only still we haven't even crossed over to.
Yeah, we're just telling you a part of the story. I told you, this is like a good soap opera, y'all.
Yes, we haven't even crossed our way over.
The biggest takeaway was I find myself, even in stories about great women in the Bible, I start to look at what the men are doing. And the thing that keeps resonating with me, the more and more I read this, is Haman would have been fine if he could have just been gotten over the offense of one person.
Mm.
Not being able to get the offense over one person. Again, Jeff International Version. The pastor didn't speak to me. Y'all don't give me enough credit for my ministry. I sang a little bit better than y'all giving me credit for. Why they don't speak to me every time I come to church? I know they don't like me. I'm telling you stuff I've said myself.
Yeah, it's also, those, it's always the little foxes. Always, when you're like at a store or like my story with my oil change, like I could have used that and been offensive, been offended by how he was talking to me. But yeah, it, he continued to allow it to fester, and he continued to, look at what Haman wasn't doing versus what the other people in the courts were doing.
Mhm.
So he held on to that, like you said, that one offense, that one thing, and just kept honing in on it. So imagine, like you said, if he would have released that one, released that over to, God in a sense, he wouldn't have had to labor on being offended or being in a place of offense. Um, and that happens a lot. That happens in regular world, regular things.
I have struggled there with my own life. I have struggled with this sense of entitlement. I have struggled with this sense of stuff. I've told you stories about just the irritation of certain people. And you and I have even had conversations about offense and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just keeping it real with y'all. Like, we're not going to sit up here and act like, you know, we don't suffer through other things that other couples come through and stuff like that. I have said things from time to time that have offended you.
Yeah.
And I can tell it as soon as I say it. And I try to do my best to apologize for
Yeah.
it and stuff. But you've
And
always
it's,
shown me grace.
yes, because I always hear the Lord say, extend grace, extend grace. And I'd be like, but Lord, mm, mm. But at the end of the day, knowing who's our ultimate protector and provider and our vindicator. So knowing that, and I can not saying that, the Lord has to protect me from you, but protecting me from taking the offense on and letting it fester and letting it change a view of how I view you.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have to continue to pray through it and to be able to release that offense. Some things are harder than others, and sometimes it's harder to the ones that you're closest to, because if it's somebody in the streets, we're like, you don't even know me, like,
Mm-hmm.
deuces. But when it's somebody that's closest to you, you're like,
Yeah.
ooh,
It's different.
that cut. It could be a
Yeah.
mama, brother, sister, cousin, or future spouse, and it hits different than somebody on the streets. So yeah, not allowing it to fester, praying over the releasing it, and it's a continual thing. It's not something that you, like, a one and done. Like, sometimes you have to continuously pray and release it, and pray over it so you can get to the other side, because what the enemy wants is division.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, that's what the enemy wants. So he doesn't want reconciliation. He doesn't want,
Right.
to become one. So he
Right.
will cause confusion and division,
Right.
and he will do it by the way of offense.
Right. That's good stuff.
So
That's amazing stuff, actually. So every time I've ever said anything that has come across as offensive, I do apologize.
I do too,
And I
because
thank you for always having grace on me.
I try to extend, not I try, I do, but I mean, in the same token, I apologize too. And I've told you time and time again, listen, this stream, this is a good one, because my mouth used to be reckless, and I'm just going to be real. But I apologize because I'm still a work in progress. I'm still growing. I'm still, as y'all can see, I talk with my hands. So I'm still growing and learning too. So I know I've said some things that's been offensive, and I rightly apologize
I accept.
for
I
those.
accept.
So,
We're good.
very
We're
good.
good. We're good. So that was my biggest take. I feel like the offense of one person ruined this man's life, and had he been able to get over the offense of one person, he'd have been fine. That was my take.
Yes.
We need to talk about yours.
My take was, on the flip side, I was thinking about Esther, and that's what kept being highlighted throughout this week. Was just like my live said, I just kept hearing divine positioning. That the Lord just kept putting her into certain positions in certain rooms to be chosen, to be favored. Um, amongst the multitude. Like she was one out of what 400, 500 women, and she was chosen. And she was a Jew, so she was placed in that room not by happenstance, but just like Malachi said, for such a time as to save the Jews at a time that she needed to be there. So if those things didn't take place, we wouldn't have fast forward to the point where she had to save the Jews by the request of by having extending a request to the king. And even when she went before, first she fasted, and then she went before the king at the risk of being humiliated, at the risk of being killed because he didn't summons for her. So I think about our walk. Like sometimes in our walk, we have to, the risk of being humiliated, being talked about, being talked down on, being, judged because of our walk and who we choose to follow. That's a risk that we take. But the ultimate goal is to save souls. She saved the Jews.
Right.
So that in itself was like, wow. So she was positioned in those certain situations. And God, we're going to get to that, but even though God isn't mentioned per se, it is the Lord, but his presence was still there. He was still orchestrating everything like to the nail. Like even when, King Azar was reading the Chronicles, and it just so happened falling to the story when Malachi was gave the plot away about him being killed. That had happened already, like the year prior, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's how things are orchestrated. Like honestly, I can wake up and I can hear, like the Lord can wake me up and he'll say Esther, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, or I can open my Bible and it just flips to a scripture, and you read and you're like, wow, I needed that. So it's things that are orchestrated, that is divinely orchestrated for the Lord to get certain attention and certain things to happen. And that's, out of those chapters, just 1 through 4, or what is it, 1 through 5, 1 through 7?
Yeah, they were in chapter 4, I believe.
Right. Just for that, that is what I got out of it. It took submission because she submitted, she submitted to the will. She took humility to go before the king. She died to herself. She was mindful of the risk that she was taking to even go before him. And even the risk of when she let the cat out the bag. Like he could have not believed her. But he found favor in her, in his sight for her. So that's all. That was a lot, but that's what I got from it. It was a whole lot.
We got to finish the story. So what ends up happening is the king, so now it's been stated, it's out there and everything. Mordecai's fine.
Yes.
Mordecai lives. Mordecai's the man. And Haman gets hung on the gallows that, he made for Mordecai. But the king, being the king and based on the laws of this time, couldn't circumvent the law. So he had to write a new law that allowed the Jews to defend themselves. And God is again working behind the scenes, because rather than hiring an army to create this mass genocide, they went out and basically hired private contractors.
Yes. Yes. So
just throw a couple of dollars, a couple people go ahead and handle it, and they ended up losing.
Yes.
The only people that died. And that's actually celebrated. I actually wrote this down. This is where the Festival of Purim comes from. And as you mentioned earlier, some people's gripe with Esther, I've actually heard this, is God's name isn't mentioned anywhere in the Bible, in this whole book. And
not mentioned by name.
Not name.
but I will say that he is mentioned by spirit.
He is. He is.
Like if you read it from a spiritual standpoint with your spiritual eyes, you can see him all up in there.
Always. Always.
You can see him all up in this book.
You know what? I think that's the point.
Absolutely.
I think that's the point. But but that's some people's gripe. And we've been talking about the book of Esther, chronologically the last book of the Old Testament, not the one that you find last in the Old Testament, but chronologically the last book. God is not mentioned, as you stated, by name, but present in the whole thing. And Jews still celebrate Purim for this defeat of those people that were supposed to commit to commit genocide on them.
Yeah.
But just as Passover remembers the deliverance of Jesus in Exodus from Egypt, the deliverance of the Jews in Exodus from Egypt, the deliverance of the Jews in Esther, being saved from genocide is what Purim is supposed to represent.
Yeah.
One is supernatural, the other is very natural.
Right.
But God is just as present in both of them.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, good work. What else you got?
Good teaching.
What else you got? Couldn't have did it without you, as always.
I think that's it. I mean, that was all my notes. But I will say God is our ultimate protector. Lay down our offense. Release it. He will always provide. He will always provide a way or a shoe-in or window and the words to speak when you feel like you benefited. And he will also check you too. So
He will. Checks me quite often.
That's the takeaway on the fence. And then the takeaway on Esther is he's always going to position us where he needs us to be. But we have to have our ears to be able to hear.
Romans 8:28, and God works all these things together for his good.
Yes.
A New Testament scripture describing something that is just always common in something we saw in the Old Testament.
Absolutely.
I'm proud of you.
Proud of you too. That was good studying.
That was good stuff.
Good studying.
Yeah. So.
Anything else?
I think we're good.
Anybody wants the This Mama Praise hoodie? Hit me up. Made by yours truly.
So the stuff IG is right there.
Yes.
You can also hit up on Facebook, Divinely Inspired Events LLC.
Yes.
Proud of you for that too. You're doing a lot of good things out here in the streets.
Thanks. I'm trying.
All right. Well, see, I told you we weren't going to be able to keep all these at 30 minutes. Second one, we already sitting like 45 minutes. So we're not going to take up too much of the rest of you guys Sunday. We appreciate you for hanging out with us. We appreciate you guys for your prayers and everything. Some of y'all said y'all couldn't make comments in the comment section. So I'll fix that because that's my fault.
Yeah,
but
we'll fix that for next time.
Yeah.
We got you.
Right. But you can hit us up after it's over with, I guess. Hit us up, comment, like, subscribe, inboxes, however you contact us. And share. We appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. This has been Kingdom Conversations.
And we out.